Welcome everyone to today's presentation. I'm so excited to have Josh Null, the president of Gulf Coast Advisors, here with us today. Welcome, Josh. And for those of you that may have never joined us for one of these before, I'm Samantha Russell from 20 Over 10. If we are not connected on Twitter or LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with all of you and chat with you on social media. So please connect with me there. And I'm so excited to have Josh here, and I wanted to give a warm welcome to him and have him tell us a little bit about himself. So Josh, I know that we're going to go into your whole story today, but high-level overview, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? I'm Josh Null. I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. It's located, for those of you not familiar with the Gulf Coast region, I'm in Fairhope, Alabama, which is on the eastern side of Mobile Bay, across the bay from Mobile, Alabama. Many of you have heard of that. And then I'm about roughly 30 miles north of the Gulf of Mexico, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores. So roughly a couple hours to the east of New Orleans and about an hour to the west of Pensacola, if you could locate us on a map. I basically own an independent financial planning and advisory practice. I went independent about 2 years ago. I have close to, I think, 11 years experience in the business. Came up on the insurance side, kind of worked my way up through the registered rep before becoming a fee-only advisor roughly about a year ago. So that's where we're at right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So today we're really going to talk about Josh's journey, where he was at and how he got to where he is today, and give you lots of tangible takeaways that you can use, learning from him and how he did it. But I also just want to do a few housekeeping things. If you have any questions at all, you can put them in the chat box and everyone can see those questions. If you want something that only Josh and I can see, please put them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. And then Amanda Larson from our team will be behind the scenes, and she will be helping to answer any questions. So please put them in real time. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Rather than a presentation, we want it to be a conversation. So let us help you however we can. So this is that high-level overview of your timeline. So I don't want to spend the whole entire presentation today, obviously, talking about this, but let's, just to give people some background, Josh, walk us through the last 10 years, 09 to 19, and sort of the high-level overview of where your head was at and kind of how you were transitioning through these different stages of your business.
Sure, Samantha, and I'm going to warn you and the viewers, I'm in the podcast studio, so to look at the camera, I won't be able to see the screen. So I'm trying to be trained like I'm a.
That's okay.
Yeah, I got to go back and forth a little bit here. I'll try to stare mostly or look mostly at the camera, but yeah, basically I got into the industry in 2009. I came out of college and had gotten into real estate, building homes, developing land. 2008 basically put us out of business. So I came into the business, already a grown man, married many years, kids and all that. And two, really not coming in kind of on the heels of a pretty rough situation. So I had to hit the ground running pretty quick. I joined an organization where I was a road warrior for about 5 years. I would travel to small towns throughout Missouri, Arkansas, and Tennessee, and would basically work with self-employed people, contractors, farmers, things like that. And I was selling mostly insurance. What you did is mostly insurance products. Fast forward, I became kind of that company's Southern guy, if you will. So as time went on, they started tasking me with developing more and more of the South. To make a very long story short, whenever I was coming off that 5-year contract, we decided that we wanted to go ahead and move down here near Mobile, Alabama, and go ahead and open up my own practice. So that's kind of what got us here on that timeline. Samantha, I think this might be a good pivot point to kick it back to you. But one of the things that was really struck me as I was working through working when I was on the road was, one, I didn't know any different. So I thought that the old school methods of, cold calling and walk and talks and, basically just kind of wearing people down until they would sit down and actually hear your pitch. I thought that was just the norm for the entire industry. It wasn't, and I was old enough that social media wasn't a natural part of my everyday life. I didn't have a Facebook account or anything like that then, but I was working in a small town in Missouri, and I went to meet the matriarch, the owner of a plumbing company. And it struck me, this in 2012, she said, "Oh, I already knew you were running around here. I know who you are." was like, well, how in the heck did you know that? She goes, well, they're talking about you on Facebook. And I'm like, really? Well, what are they saying? And she said, well, they say you're nice. They say you're a nice guy, you know? And so that was one of those things where at the time, I kind of aha moment. But as years went on, I realized, oh my gosh, there's a conversation going on about me and I'm not even part of it. So that might be a good pivot point back to you, Samantha, if you have a question or if anybody has a question on that part.
Yeah, and feel free anyone to ask a question. So when she was saying people were talking about you, I assume what she means is somebody had said, do you recommend an advisor? Or maybe it was like in a neighborhood group or something, and nobody had tagged you in their post, so you couldn't see it, but people
Well, I
were
didn't have a Facebook account. I had nothing to tag.
okay.
I didn't have a Facebook account. So basically they were, we're working through this town thinking that I'm meeting these people for the first time. And I'm coming up to a lot of them, particularly the business owners, and they've already had an ongoing conversation about me and my services and everything I was doing. It was a real eye opener at the time.
Yeah.
So, and this, Samantha, on the screen, the poll results are still up, but I hope it's my story. So hopefully I can do this from memory. Came off, there you go. Yeah. And so my contract ended the end of 2014. At that point, we'd already moved down here south. 2015, I joined a mutual company. The whole goal originally was to build a fee-based practice. But at the time, I knew that if I didn't have access to some insurance and things like that, there's a pretty good chance I go broke down here without knowing anybody, have no natural market. So I started with a mutual company, worked my way up through the registered rep side, had a good experience. They were nice people. But as the years went on, and I'm thinking I'm coming into this experience where I'm going to be taught kind of at least somewhat modern methods of prospecting and marketing and things like that. Really what I found was the only difference was they were a little bit more on, direct mail and maybe some seminar stuff, which was fine. But I felt like I was, again, back to 2012, I felt like there was an ongoing conversation online that I was not a part of. And as I kept trying to work my way through compliance to get to that point where I could be part of that conversation, I just kept hitting roadblocks.
So were you creating content of your own at any, like around what year, and where were you? Were you with the mutual company? Like where were you when you actually tried your hand at creating an original piece of content, whether it was a video?
All right. So to be fair, Samantha, I did what a lot of people did, and I don't mean this is going to sound more critical than it means to be, but I started out by sharing the same piece of canned stuff that thousands of other advisors had shared it. And it was, you go to, honestly, I try to think of the mindset back then, but I'd go to the trouble of sharing it and try to, put some of my words on it and things like that. And I'd put it out there and I was getting nothing. My mom and like my aunt would like it. They'd be nice, but none of the prospects or potential clients would be like, it was paying any attention. So as the frustration rolled on, I realized that, hey, I'm going to have to probably break out of this semi-captive situation if I'm going to do some of the things I want to do. I started dipping my toe, to answer your question. I started dipping my toe around 2017, but not really in a big way. To be fair, I did more experimentation with my wife and her business, because she was not really strong on social media either, but she was starting a CPR certification business. And she really honestly was my guinea pig. And late 2017, we started putting some stuff out on her stuff, and immediate results. It was incredible how fast it got picked up. So much by mid 2018, I was convinced. There was no turning back. I'd made up my mind. I'm going to go independent, and I'm going to start producing some of my own content. And I've got a story for you on that when you're ready. But I at the time, I had my 6, 63, 7, and 65. I didn't know enough that I was scared to go out there without the support of a broker dealer. I knew that my future was heading towards the fee only space, but I was really concerned about losing that support. And so I affiliated with a regional broker dealer in 2018.
Okay. Actually, but I want to hear that story about that original piece of content. But I think
you're going to laugh.
A great time while you're about to tell that, because your story really is one that I think a lot of people either have gone through, or maybe they aspire to eventually go independent. So for those of you on the call today, how many of you are currently independent? Are you with a BD? Like, where are you at? It would be great for us to know, because it really does really impact how you can market, right? And regardless of where you're at, there are ways that you can market your business no matter what, but it's really interesting to know. So we would love to know in the chat, tell us, Are you independent? Are you with a BD? Do you feel restricted in how you can currently market and the kind of content you can put out? A lot of times, when you have a compliance officer that has to check everything, they can be great. It's just that the turnaround time can be a little bit slower because the volume that they have to approve. And it looks like, just looking through the chat and what people are asking, lots of people are saying either independent BD or independent RIA. And for the most part, a good amount of flexibility, even those who are with a BD. So that is fantastic to hear, because 5 years ago, if I were to ask the same question in this chat, it would have been a completely different story. And I really think that a lot of organizations are realizing that they need to open up and help their advisors as much as possible with this marketing, because it's only going to impact their own bottom line. And I don't know if all of you saw, there was a survey actually by RIA Intel, and they found that the number 2 reason that someone will leave a broker dealer is because of marketing restrictions. So I totally get that. But thank you for everybody who is answering. This is really helpful to see. So tell us your story about that first time you actually created your original piece of content.
All right. So if you want to see this, what I'm about to describe, it's the first video on my YouTube channel. But I had, back then.
I got
oh, Lord, no. I shouldn't have said that. Oh, good grief. It's bad. But I had, I didn't really have anybody to look to in my industry to do what I was trying to do. I mean, I had bigger names like Kitsy's, and, then you kept working up the chain, but that didn't seem real to me. I needed something more local. So what I did was I actually kind of reached out to some people in other industries locally that were doing some of the things I wanted to do. And they convinced me to do a video to announce I was going independent. So, and I can give you all the stats on that. Oh my Lord, I can't believe you're playing that. And of course I was dumb enough to have a spot removed off my face 2 days before filming. I didn't have much brains back then. I don't know who that guy is. But the point of that is basically they convinced me to get in front of a camera. And this may help some of you all that are thinking about doing this. I did not grow up with this stuff. I literally I'd never taken a selfie of myself, let alone a video, before I stepped in front of this camera. But the best way to sum it up is I had, outside of my clients, probably maybe 500 people-ish knew that I had a business in downtown Fairhope doing what I did. Maybe, and I mean maybe 100 cared. That video, and my network on Facebook, probably about 400 or 500 people, same on LinkedIn. That video right there that I did, I ended up getting 5,000 views on Facebook, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think another 3,000 on LinkedIn, and it just popped. And it's not even that good a video. I don't have my shirt tucked in properly, but it just popped. And what it did is that it changed the conversation almost literally overnight out in the public, of people actually paying attention and taking me seriously. And it wasn't even that good a video. So it was, everything those guys had told me about, putting myself out there, that was worth it. It was confirmed within 1 5-minute video. It absolutely set us off on the right foot.
I love that so much. And I think for many of you, you've probably found yourself watching more video than you ever have, especially in your feed. And even if you watch it with the sound off and you put captions on, which we highly recommend because many people don't turn the sound on, think about seeing another human being's face and what that does to you from a psychological standpoint. We know from psychology that the more we're exposed to something, the more familiar we are with it, the more we're prone to rate that we like it. So just by virtue of seeing something over and over again, familiarity makes us think we like something more. So seeing someone's face over and over again really works to your benefit. And video is a great way to do that. Many of you see my face all the time in your news feeds because of the exact same principle. And it really does work. So if you do not have somebody from your organization that serves as the face of the company right now, whether it's a larger multi-person shop or you're a one lady or one man shop, you really need to think about getting somebody in front of the camera, because people connect with other people much more than brands, and it makes a huge, huge difference. So this YouTube channel that you have, obviously the look and feel of these videos have changed. Now we kind of see this fancy setup you have over here. When you were recording that first video, what did you use to record it?
So I used, well, let me give a full explanation. The first video was shot by a friend of mine named Travis Militant, a very talented cameraman down here on the Gulf Coast. He did it as a favor, and he showed up, and I had this 4-page script that I was gonna read from while he was recording, and he took it and he looked at it. And Travis is a really mild guy, and he wadded it up and he threw it away. He said, "Why don't you just talk from the heart?" So that's what I did for 5 minutes. I just got up and spoke from the heart. Now he recorded it on a fairly nice piece of equipment. However, Samantha, if you'll scroll back down, the majority of those videos you see there would have been recorded on some version of an iPhone. The majority of the stuff that I put out there is on an iPhone. The only exceptions to that is you'll notice what all are your 401k rollover options, kind of the middle of the screen there. One of the results of that first video that I did, one of the results was a local TV station reached out to me, and they said, "Hey, we saw your video. Would you be interested in maybe doing some commercials?" I said, "Well, I'd love to, but you're going to have to bring me a heck of a discount for me to be able to swing it." Well, I didn't hear from them. A couple weeks later, they called up, "Hey, we got an NFL game between the Jaguars and the Titans. We can get you on 3 spots for X amount of dollars. Can you do it?" And I said, "Well, when do you need it?" "Well, we need it tomorrow." So I called Travis up again. We picked a local restaurant there, and that's basically me strolling through August heat in a suit, talking to Travis as he's walking in front of me. And that commercial, the couple commercials were shown on a couple local channels here during an NFL game. So that's how fast things went once we started doing the videos.
So this is a great question that just came in, which I think people are probably thinking about. So somebody said, looking at these, the video views aren't that high, even on the one that you mentioned, the very first video only has 21 views,
right?
Yet you talked about when you posted it to Facebook or LinkedIn, the thousands of views you got. And so, one thing for everybody to keep in mind, YouTube is only going to count a view if somebody watches the video on YouTube or a place that the video has been embedded from YouTube for 30 seconds or more. That's when they count it as a view. So if you take that same video and you upload it to LinkedIn or Facebook and it's a raw file there, they're not going to count it as a view because it's no longer linked directly from YouTube. Or if somebody only watches 15 seconds of it, they don't count that as a view either. But I wondered, in your experience, do you find that the number of views on the video, like what is the correlation for you and the exposure versus what YouTube is saying is a view?
Well, and I think to be fair, quite honestly, with the person that made that comment, as far as YouTube goes, I'm not a big deal, even with that video. I mean, we had significant more pop on Facebook and on LinkedIn than we did on YouTube. And that still continues to this day. I have not cracked the YouTube code yet, but as we've kind of cracked the code on some other things, I think that's going to be one of the successes we'll see over the next year or two, to a certain degree. When you're talking about financial products and services, it's a little bit of a dry topic. So I don't think I'm ever going to have, some of the views that some of the things that my kids watch endlessly on YouTube. I think the biggest help for us was it, and I don't know the geometry to this, but it absolutely started helping us with Google. Some of the stuff we would do, you would see on there, we'd go to be intentionality with some of the wording and the notation. And we've noticed that has seemed to be kind of the potpourri that has helped us with search results. But that's a fair comment on the YouTube. I think if an advisor was to go full blown into YouTube and really go after it hard, more than I'm posting. I'm posting about a video every week or so. I think you'll absolutely see more results. The more you put in these platforms, the more you're going to get out of it. We just haven't to that point. It's been more of a library for us, and then hopefully a little bit of an SEO play to a certain degree so far.
Sure. Yeah, and people forget that when somebody is just doing a search, so like if you come in here and you search, can financial advisors have Google reviews? So this is something I created a video on. Videos can show up that right in the search here, right? So I did a search, I'm not searching YouTube, but YouTube videos that answer this question are popping up in the search results. So if you have great content and it is answering a question, Google can pull that right into the search results. And that's where also having really specific questions in your title are really awesome, because from a search engine perspective, it's going to help you target the right people. Instead of don't worry about being a generalist that's being shown to everyone. Think about, I know I want to get into more like the particular demographic you serve, Josh, but what would somebody in your niche, what's like a really specialized question that they might have? How can you answer that in a quick video and then hopefully get found when they search for something like that?
Right. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about the niche that you serve, and then I want to talk a little bit more about some of these other platforms and your, success on them. But talk to us a little bit about who you particularly work with.
Well, I think to explain that properly is you have to remember that I'm not from Mobile, Alabama. I was not raised here by any stretch. I'm originally from Missouri. When we moved down here, we didn't know a single person. We didn't have any natural market. We didn't really have, a lot of times, a lot of people have come into the industry, they've come in with a list of 200, right? Get what's your 200 contacts, a lot of friends, a lot of family. I did have obviously some family and some friends back in Missouri, but as far as a local natural market, I didn't have any. So in the beginning, just to be quite frank, is we didn't really niche in the beginning because I didn't know who was going to respond to the message that I was putting out there.
Sure.
The number one thing, that we wanted to convey off the very beginning was, hey, we're open and honest people just out here trying to give you a hand. And as anybody knows that does some of their own marketing or is involved with this kind of stuff, is the first battle is just creating awareness. I'd mentioned earlier that, maybe 500 people ish knew that we were there and maybe 100 cared. That's probably being generous. I would say in the area now, probably 5,000 ish know we're around. And I hope anyway, 500 to 1,000 seem to be at least somewhat actively engaged in some form or fashion with us. So it's changed significantly in that regard. What has happened then by being this kind of open and honest, and Samantha, you and I have talked about this, but I grew up pretty blue collar, from the Ozarks, kind of just I grew up running heavy equipment and working construction, things like that. So for me to come down here and immediately try to jump into the super high net worth, kind of country club kind of thing, I think it would have been a fantastic way to go broken style real quick. So I had to kind of start, not from the bottom, but I kind of had to start with the people that looked like me, but had a similar experience, which was, entrepreneurs, small business owners, sole proprietors, people that were really good at making messes and building things and having lots of things going on and their hair's on fire. And so as we started building our client base, what has happened naturally over the last couple of years, particularly the pivot happened really strong about 9-10 months ago, is we were trying to develop, maybe even unspokenly, is started to really come into focus and clarity, to where now part of this webinar that you and I are doing and the things we're going to talk about Lead Pilot is we are now at a point where I think I can comfortably not pivot, but adjust and fine tune to where we go all in on the needs of a Gulf Coast area business owner. And that business owner typically is going to be somebody that's really busy, doesn't have a lot of time to mess with these things, needs somebody they can trust, handle the stuff, leads a very active lifestyle. And so you can imagine, you all hear me talk, I talk relatively fast. That's we all are kind of getting to the point where all that kind of comes together. And that is, we're going to start drilling really deep on that niche.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. So if you're on your website, and by the way, just so you know, this website is hosted on 20 Over 10's platform. But what I love is that Josh actually used our do-it-yourself option. So our tool makes it incredibly easy for anyone to create a site. So if you're newly going independent and you have a very small budget, you can go in, choose one of our frameworks, upload your content, your images, and there's no setup fee. You just pay the monthly fee, which gets you the hosting, the archiving for compliance, and then also all of the great content that we have that you can go in and add the pieces that are pertinent to you, and you can customize them all and personalize them for your audience. So you created this site. I know it was a work in progress, but you've been able to add to it over time. So you launched this site actually about a year ago. Is that correct?
Yeah. And you going to allow me to tell the story how I got to the launching the site, how I came to 20 over 10. And
well, actually, just because of the interest in time, the thing that I know people are going to be most excited to know is you launched the site. Has anyone ever found you just from a Google search and found your website? Yes. And then ended up contacting you? Like, what happened? Tell us about that.
Yeah, and it's been a work in progress. What Samantha is asking me not to tell you is just all the frustration with some other well-known carriers that I mean, I even posted something about 3 years ago where I was literally legitimately considering giving up my website. I was so frustrated. I felt like I was wasting so much time and money on it. I'm not going to name the company, but thankfully a fellow advisor and good friend, Wes Cootie, referred me to 20 over 10, and that's how I got started. And even more fortunately, given the fact that I was, basically kind of a startup boutique practice, there was an affordable way for me to do the do-it-yourself, where I could bring some of my own content and bring some of the content 20 over 10 provided, and actually have a great website. So as time has moved on, what we have found as we've put more effort and content into the site, every month we're starting to get more and more results from that. We're getting people reaching out either by messaging me, or sometimes they pick up the phone and call. And then probably the coolest thing is they'll set an appointment on the Calendly app. And if you don't mind, Samantha, I'll tell you, one of the biggest success stories we had recently is we had a lady that had searched me. She had searched fiduciary advisor near me. She was about 10 miles south of me. She found me. She went, perused the website, liked what she saw, went to Facebook, went to LinkedIn, kind of did a double check of my connections and some of my posts, set a Calendly app. And when she came in, and I don't know if this number is impressive to some of you advisors or not, but in my world, this is a pretty solid client. But she came into my office with her statements in hand, about $600,000 worth of various accounts, some qualified, non-qualified, and really she was ready to make the decision. In fact, I even told her to sleep on it and let me know the next day. She called me the next day. She goes, you check all the boxes. I feel like I know you very well. How you acted in person is exactly what I saw on the website, which is really important. And we were able to get all her accounts moved over relatively within a couple of weeks, and off we went. It's been a great client since then. So more and more of that is happening.
That is such a great story. And I know some of you that are on this call have also shared similar stories with me. I'd love, raise your hands if you've ever gotten a client who did a Google search and found your firm and then reached out, either scheduled a meeting or, sent you an email. Or seen some hands go up. I love it.
And that would have,
not as many as I would like.
Sorry, that would have never happened 2, 3, 4 years ago. It literally would not have happened other by just sheer dumb luck. The intentionality is what allowed that to happen.
So some questions that people are asking are, okay, this is great, but what for you, like, what is the mindset to go from that outbound to inbound, because inbound takes time. There is that exponential nature to it, but that growth model, it is a new kind of growth model, and it takes time. You start putting out content, but you don't have people knocking on your door overnight. So what would you say from the amount of time that you showed us 2 years ago, you started that YouTube video, how long did it take for you to start seeing some traction, and how regimented are you in, once you get a lead or someone who's interested, following up and continuing to drip on them with new content?
Well, and I think, what led to it, Samantha, quite honestly, is just frustration. I think in our industry, there's always been a gap between those viewed as an expert and those viewed as just a guy or just a gal, to be honest with you. And I think what has happened with the acceleration of online websites, social media, is that gap is widening. And I was old enough that I could take a step back and kind of view the longer view of these things. And I realized that I was basically working towards irrelevancy. The people that I would finally get, the meetings with, I was just someone trying to sell them something, quite honestly. That's really, even though I was really good at it, I was just somebody trying to sell them something, versus the other direction where you're trying to, create this ecosystem. You're trying to create this experience where, the ones that fit with you have time to digest it, decipher it, and they're the ones reaching out to you. And I think that what is the price of being relevant? And that's really what it came down to me, is I just really felt like we were running in place. And to be fair, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, because there are probably some people that are watching this webinar that are really, really good at cold calling, or really, really good at email marketing, really, really good at, postcards, seminars, whatever it may be. I've always been really careful not to disparage any of those things, because a lot of times when people come in and want to tell you, hey, do this type of marketing, it's honestly because they sucked at the other way of doing it, the traditional methods. I had a 7-year track record of being pretty dang good at, traditional style of prospecting and marketing. The problem is it was never an efficient way of doing things. And as the years went on, it just became less and less effective, to the point where a lot of times instead of planting a seed with somebody, I feel like I was just aggravating them. And
Yeah.
so when we made the pivot, I knew it was going to take longer. I knew I had to put my shoulder into a longer time. I knew enough that I wasn't just going to start, thought I was going to put some videos out there and people start throwing money at me. So, we decided to still keep the other hooks in the water. I always so I get a lot of questions. Sometimes I speak at seminars and things like that. People think I just sit in front of my computer all day and post videos and stuff like that. I mean, I'm still, when we could do this, I'm still on the public, shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all that stuff. I still network in groups. I still do the chamber stuff. I do all that stuff. This is just a way for it to, have, if you're thinking you're in a boat fishing, how many can I get more hooks in the water where I've got more opportunity to catch these people when they're looking, where they're looking, and how they're looking. And that was always what drove me on trying, going this direction. And it took, just quite honestly, it took a good year-ish for it to really start to kind of like, okay, whew, that wasn't a waste of time. And then just to be, again, quite honest, when COVID hit, everything came home to roost. I mean, the whole world pivoted to what I was doing literally overnight.
And you were already ready for it. I think
I was there.
The thing too, especially with your audience, anybody though, like you mentioned, there are some people that are, 70 and older that maybe aren't doing it this way, but really anyone else now, when we have a problem or we need something, we're like, okay, I need a better tax strategy, or, oh, I'm getting ready to retire. How am I going to do this? Or, oh, I'm launching this business. I need to be able to offer 401ks for all my staff. The way that we think about things is we don't immediately think, okay, who's going to help me solve this problem? We first think, let me go online and just do some research, and we Google it. And then based upon who gives us great information is who we're most likely to want to keep having that conversation with, continuing the conversation offline. And that's the mindset shift that I think so many business owners haven't embraced. And it's really just shifted so much in the last 5 years, that people who always would say, I don't need a digital strategy. All of my, business comes from referrals or from cold calling or whatever it is. It's like all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, this really isn't working anymore. And when I do get in front of somebody, I feel like they're already primed to resist what it is I'm trying to tell them, because they feel like I'm trying to sell them something. So I love what you said about lots of hooks in the water, but really it's, you become a magnet that people are drawn to you instead of you trying to, knock down their door and get them to pay attention to you. I want to make sure we have time for more questions. And one of the ones that came up was people asking, when it comes to, let me get out of here. When it comes to the social media that you are on, because you are on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and all these places, what has been most successful for you? Where have you gotten the most traction?
Well, so I think part of that is going to depend on someone's geography, and then the other part is going to depend on their target client, their target prospect. So down here in Mobile, Alabama, this is a Facebook area. I mean, it just is. Facebook really dominates. It's not a Twitter town. And as I think, whereas, 2 or 3, maybe even 2 years ago, but definitely 3, 4, 5 years ago, people would always tell me, well, no one buys anything on Facebook. Well, I mean, or successful people are not on Facebook. And I think what we've found, what everybody's proven is, man, everybody's on Facebook, and it's getting older, which is actually good for our business to a certain degree. If you're, if you're going towards older people that have time to accumulate assets. So 100%, I knew that it was a Facebook town. That's where we first started our efforts. And that was where we got the initial pop. Now, were we pulling multi-million-dollar business owner clients from there? Not initially, no. But, doctors are on there, dentists are on there. More people are on there than anybody that still is kind of poo-pooing it. Not that it's the end all be all, but there's pretty successful people there. There's a way for you to get your message out. You just got to be, you got to be intentional about it. You can't be going on there. If you're wondering why your posts are not getting any action, it's probably because they're coming off as very salesy, and anything salesy is just going to get ignored. Do
you do Facebook ads?
I've done a little bit, not much. Most of the stuff I've done has been organic. The only time I've spent what I would consider significant money was LinkedIn.
Okay. So you mentioned, with some of the audience, you told me that with the audience that you have, you've been spending more time on LinkedIn. I know many
Mhm.
advisors we work with are on the receiving end of very LinkedIn salesy messages. There's so many people out there that tell you all that they can triple your AUM and get you more leads. So you're primed to just resist it because you all are the audience that other people are fishing for. So,
Right.
but really, that's not the case with lots of other people. I mean, me personally, as a marketer, I don't get hit up on LinkedIn with salesy messages as often. I don't think. Maybe I do, and I don't think
Surprising.
of it that way. Or I just ignore them. But I find it to be a fantastic place to create business opportunity because I'm talking to other businesses about how to use marketing to grow. Um, do you have like a strategy for using LinkedIn? Is it like you're actually choosing individual people and seeking them out to connect with them, or direct message them, or take their email and put it in a drip campaign? Or is it really just posting the content?
So I actually do have a strategy, and I wrote about it. It's somewhere in one of those articles there. You'll have to dig for it.
Okay.
But I keep, something that, for better or worse. I mean, I'm a fairly educated, fairly bright guy, but when it comes to some things, you just got to use a little common sense. So, you have to put yourself in your potential prospect's shoes. If somebody connected with you and they immediately jump into your messages and they hit you up 6, 7, 8 times in a row without you responding, and all they're doing is talking about themselves, well, just translate that to the real world. You go to a party and this guy trying to sell you something just gets up in your face for an hour straight trying to tell you how great he is, and he never lets you have an opportunity to talk about yourself. So my strategy is pretty simple. I kind of pick out anywhere, usually around, let's say, 5 to 10 local business owners or people that are in my prospect list, things that someone's came on my radar. And then I just go in and I give them some support on their posts. I like them, comment them, if they're good, obviously they have some decent content, but I give them what I would like to receive myself, because there's not a human being on earth that puts something up on LinkedIn or any other platform that puts it up there hoping no one likes it.
Right.
Right. So if you're putting stuff out there and, you're disappointed that you're not getting likes, well, what about the other people that are putting stuff out there and you're passing over, you're too good to hit like on their stuff? Man, instead of sending them a message right off the bat, engage with their stuff a little bit, get to learn about them a little bit, even send them a message, say, hey man, I really enjoyed what you said about XYZ. And that's it. And then circle back around. It's just a completely different mindset shift versus what you said, Samantha, of just, I think what's it called, sliding up into your DMs.
Yes.
I feel like on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is constantly slid up into my DMs and it wears me out. Oh. But yeah, I wrote an article about, the basic strategy.
Yeah, it's so true. And for those of you kind of wondering, like a good way to do this, if you go to your page and you look at all of your connections, you'll see you can like click on any one individual person and then see some of their connections as well. So right now, like Tiffany is not my connection; she's Josh's connection. So she's a secondary degree connection of mine through him. So I could go if I think, oh man, I'd love to make connection with CNBC and maybe get them to notice me and share some of the content. I could go look at all of the things that she has shared in her feed. And you can see this under activity, right? This little activity tab, you click see all. And now I can see everything that she's posted. And then I can go and interact with it. So I can like it, I can leave a comment, whatever. That's what we're talking about here. It's really easy to look at the second degree connections of your network. So if you have a big client who has a lot of really great friends and you think the friends of that client would be great people for me to know and interact with, this is how you would do it. You find that client, you look at their second degree connections, and you start engaging with them. On Facebook, same principle. You choose the person and then you can start looking at their connections. So this is what we're talking about. And it's such a simple strategy, but a lot of people do not use it because they don't necessarily know how to actually go through and do it. And so I love that you mentioned that. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit, we've gotten a lot more questions again about your content creation, how often you're doing it. Are you on a schedule? And I know you had mentioned StreamYard as a way to hook up and create one piece of content and put it in multiple places. So can you tell us how you're using that?
I can, yeah. LinkedIn forced StreamYard on me, so I applied for when LinkedIn Live put out the applications to be approved for their video feed. I applied, and I was fairly persistent. I don't know if that helped me or not, because I mean, I've got for a regular local financial advisor, I've got a pretty decent LinkedIn presence, but compared to you, Samantha, in 2010 over 10, got a long way to go. So I wasn't sure how they were going to respond. Much to my delight, they said yes, and then I had to pick an application to use. Well, I went through the different applications. StreamYard seemed to be the most intuitive, and with StreamYard, and at this point, I've fallen in love with it. I don't know if that, hopefully I'm not, promoting a product I'm not supposed to, but they, I fell in love with them. They allow me to go, I think it's called multi-channel, where I can stream live on, depending on your service you buy, you can actually stream up to 10 different platforms at one time live. So we typically stream live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can pick, do you want to be on your business page when you're live? Do you want to be on your personal page? It gives you some flexibility, and it records for you. Then it allows you to, get put on some pretty decent, simple graphics that kind of dress it up a little bit more than just the regular video pointing at you. So so far we've been using it a few months. Ever since I got approved of LinkedIn Live, I've been very happy with it.
So you mentioned that early on, you were kind of creating content just in big waves. Do you have, can you tell us a little bit, like how often are you posting to Facebook or LinkedIn or any of these platforms? Do you have a schedule of, I want to get one post a day here or 3 times a week there?
Well, I can tell you how we handled it in the beginning, Samantha, was I viewed it as, when I went independent, I viewed it as I had 2 jobs. During the day, I was Josh Null, financial advisor for Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. And at night and weekends, I was Josh Null, marketing director for Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. So a lot of the times in the evening in the beginning was spent editing video, putting content together, all that kind of stuff, and getting it ready to either post that next day or have it scheduled for the following. Anybody that is in, this line of work or any related line of work realizes that's not a sustainable model, because what ends up happening is you actually, if you do it right, you start getting a little bit of success. Now you don't have time. You're trying to play catch up all the time. So what we have naturally morphed to, from me doing this stuff kind of on nights and weekends and just trying to get out as much as I could, as quick as I could. What we do now is we structure things where we batch record whatever we're going to record, and then we repurpose the heck out of it, all of it. If we record a 30-minute podcast, we're also doing the video. We're pulling clips from it. Audio clips, written clips, video clips. We're trying to, if we got, let's say 10 minutes of video or some type of content, we're trying to stretch that out to 30 to 50 minutes of actual distribution content we can go around there. We've used, Samantha, to be honest with you, and then the people that are watching, I've used a couple different programs. They've been fine. But we're at a point now, and I know we'll talk about this in a minute, where I'm the perfect candidate for something like Lead Pilot, where I've produced enough of my own content. I've had some traction and some success. As a result of that, I don't have as much time to produce and distribute, which is the big thing, distribute the content. I really need help there. So that's the people that are coming to this webinar, they're seeing that transition in real time, where we did schedule it. Now we're about to hyper schedule it. Yep. And then as far as frequency, my thing to everybody, anybody that ever asked me, the main thing is consistency. If you're going to be once a day, be once a day. If you're going to be once a week, be once a week. Whatever it is, just be consistent with it, and quit trying to hit a home run every time you put something out there. Unless you're really, really, really talented at this kind of thing, and I'm not, you're not going to just put this perfect post out there that causes people to throw money at you. What will happen over time, if you're consistent with your posting, they'll eventually form a relationship with you, and now you have an opportunity. We post at least once a day on Facebook, because again, it's Facebook town. At least once every couple of days on LinkedIn. At least once a week-ish on Instagram, and roughly probably once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks on YouTube. And then, of course, the website, we put quite a bit on there continually.
So I love what you said about consistency. So true. We started a YouTube channel 5 years ago and did barely anything with it. And then in the last 2 years, we made a commitment. We would upload a new video every Monday, like a quick tip video. And then once a month, at least, if not twice a month, do a longer form webinar video like this. And we went from barely any subscribers to over 1,000. The number of views per month skyrocketed, and it really made a huge difference. So definitely prioritize that, and with whatever kind of content you're doing. For those of you that have a blog, I just wanted to point out, if you have a 20 over 10 website, in the blogging area, and Josh, this will be familiar to you, we have this section here where it says manage posts. And you can always add in your own content, but we have this thing called Content Assist, which is a library of content. 15 new pieces are added every month. You can come in and select, from a particular topic area that you're interested in, whatever it is. Let's look through trending topics. And you can add these pieces to your website. None of them are automatically added because they are very specific on different topics, but you can also edit them for your audience. And we suggest you do this at least twice a month. All of these blog posts are written with best SEO practices in mind, but you can also add in keywords for your local area or the niche that you serve. So this really gives you a leg up. And because these are not from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, they're not syndicated content, they really, really help you because you can edit them and make yourself the author. It can be your own byline. So that's huge. So just wanted to point that out. Go ahead.
And somebody that is a ridiculous amount of reading that I do, and the amount of experience I have with producing my own stuff, 20 over 10's article and blog content is second to none. I mean that sincerely. Yeah,
all of the content is in-house by our team, so that is a huge.
Yeah, it's great.
So a lot of questions about the distribution, which I'm so glad to hear because I think it's so true. You see someone doing this and you're like, how the heck are you going to take all this content and distribute it? And so really what Josh has been doing up till now is really organic. He's logging into these different platforms and uploading it. We actually, as we were talking, because I was so impressed by what he was doing, I said to him, as a reward for coming on to this webinar today, I'd love to have you try out Lead Pilot and let's get you an account and have you start distributing the content through 20 over 10's Lead Pilot tool. So we are going to do that. And then we're going to come back on camera maybe 6 months from now or so after he's been using it and has an objective period of time to try it out and get his take on what's changed, how it's impacted. So for those of you that would like to try it along with him, we do offer a 7-day free trial and then a month-to-month option, so you can just pay per month. But really what it allows you to do is you can take one of your pieces if you've got it yourself. So in your case here, Josh, you might take your video, and I'm just going to choose a video that I've recorded here, and grab it and take the URL, strategies, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So he would come in here, he can have a featured image that you want to upload that you can just pop in as your, placeholder here. You can title it whatever you want. So let's just pretend it was 401k Q&A. And then for your video, you could pop it in right here. And now we have this beautiful landing page. Pretend that's Josh with a video of him talking about something, the content itself. And of course he can come in and, type whatever he wants to add it in. You can create different headers and all the things you would see in a normal, blogging platform. But once you've created that piece of content, the amazing thing is it's going to live on a branded landing page. So this will say Gulf Coast Advisors. It will have his color scheme. Actually, I think this kind of matches the color scheme pretty nicely.
It does.
Yep. And then his face will be here, or the face of his other staff members, any of the calls to action. So when he posts to LinkedIn or Facebook, it's going to take people to this landing page to interact with the content. And it's so much easier for them to then have a set call to action, whether it's review my portfolio, talk to me about my 401k plan options, schedule a time with our team. And then as they fill out those different calls to action, they will be pulled into your CRM. So it integrates with all of the top CRMs advisors are using. It also notifies you that you now have a new lead, and then you can start dripping on them. So you can add them to different drip marketing campaigns. Sharing is as easy as this. So you saw me create that. Now we come here and we say, okay, I want to schedule this to go out. So next week, October 2nd, we're going to push it to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And maybe we'll also push it to email, but we don't want to send it to all of our contacts. We only want to send it to people that have a lead score of over 85, or only people that live in Orlando, or only people that are business owners. So you can have a ton of different segments, create different subject lines, all that good stuff. And you have this beautiful campaign that now we can schedule out. and we are good to go. And we'll confirm, and there it's all scheduled now. And so if we go here into our scheduled stuff, we are going to see that is ready to go. The part to me though that's the most exciting is once you've got people that you're pushing out your own content, you really want to put them in a drip campaign so that you can continue to follow up with them. So you can take any of our pre-made campaigns. So I just pulled up one really quickly, and you can see here, this is a campaign that once somebody fills out that form or subscribes or says, yes, I'm interested, you put them in a drip sequence like this so that you're staying in front of them over time. So you can see in this first email that would go out, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. It says, thank you for subscribing, and it would put their first name in. We wanted to reach out and have a quick thank you. We're excited to have you here. We're going to be sharing content with you over the coming weeks. So this is what true drip marketing is, because again, we know that familiarity is going to make somebody more inclined to like you, but also sharing helpful content, not immediately saying, hey, book a time on my calendar. Hey, let me tell you how I can help you. But instead, just providing more value is going to be the way to their heart. And so this really makes it easy to do that. I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of this tool because there's so much about it that is amazing. If you want to get a quick demo or learn more, just go to leadpilot.io and you can either start your own 7-day free trial to check everything out or schedule a one-on-one demo. But Josh, we're going to get you hooked up, and I can't wait to bring you back on and hear how it changes your distribution strategy.
Absolutely.
So if you have 5 more minutes, I want to go through and answer any other questions we didn't get to, because I do see some more, if that's okay with you.
All right. Yes, absolutely. Plus I got a shout out I got to do at some point.
Okay. You want to give it now? Go ahead.
Well, you know, as you notice, as you pulled up a lot of those videos, and particularly with the podcast, that, you remember me telling you earlier, I'd never stepped in front of a camera and filmed a video. So once I kind of realized, hey, this is a way I want to go, but I don't want to be the only one talking all the time. I asked a guy that works with me named Jay Stubbs if he would start coming on and doing some of this stuff. So I cannot express to you how important it was in the beginning to have someone there side by side producing some of this stuff. It made it go 1,000 times better. And that's what actually led to our podcast, Every Dollar Counts, was the evolution of that relationship.
That's awesome. So, I see Jay on the line. So hi, Jay. Glad that we have you here. People are asking about like the video editing and, any of that, if you have certain tools that you recommend, or if you just do it in StreamYard, what does that look like?
All right. So I never let perfect stand in the way of good. And, I've been doing this long enough, and I've started this journey long enough where I've had countless people reach out that, hey, I'm going to do this, but I got to get this perfect, or I'm going to do that, but it's got to be such and such. And in the meantime, as you all have seen, I've produced a pretty significant amount of content, primarily from my phone, my iPhone, and primarily using iMovie to edit it. You can film in 4K on your iPhone. It doesn't take a whole lot of lighting or a microphone to pick up, and then you can edit it. iMovie is more than capable enough for anything that you're doing as a base level. Now, if you're trying to do high level stuff with a bigger firm, fine, I get it. But as far as just a lot of the stuff you saw there, our editing, I keep it very simple, stupid. I go in there and I put it through iMovie and clean it up, and off we go.
I love that. Yeah. Even, for us, if you go back to our YouTube channel and look at early days videos, it's me from the iPhone. And I think that's such an important point, is that really there's not a lot of people doing this in the financial advisory space. So the ones that do, regardless of your production value, you're going to stand out and get noticed more. And LinkedIn, I think we mentioned this, is just starting to roll out stories now. So like if you're on Instagram or Facebook and you see those circles at the top of your feed on mobile, and you can click them and they stay there for 24 hours, LinkedIn is rolling this out for advisors. That's a great way to wade into this if you're not comfortable with video yet, because by nature, stories are supposed to be off the cuff, recorded on your phone, really authentic. So that would be a great way to try out video and, try your hand at something. It'll disappear after 24 hours. You don't have to worry about it being there to haunt you forever.
And I'd highly encourage, don't overproduce anyway. I mean, just again, put yourself in the viewer's shoes. You really want to see some slick piece of commercial that you would see like at a halftime of a football game, or do you want to see somebody being authentic and genuine talking to you as a real person. So
Right.
I think that's the main thing. Just be authentic and genuine, and quit trying to make it perfect. You don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Well, I think we're going to end there because I love that as a way to wrap up. If anyone has additional questions that you feel you would love to get the answer to that we didn't get time to ask or go through, go ahead and email us, marketing@20over10.com. And if we need to ask Josh, if they're pertinent to him, we can do that too. But thank you all so much for being here today. Josh, I cannot thank you enough for spending a whole hour answering these questions and walking us through your journey. It's so awesome to see what you've been able to do in such a short period of time, and I look forward to continuing to follow along.
Wonderful. Well, Samantha, thank you for having me on, and thanks to all the folks at 20 over 10 for doing such a fantastic job.
All right. Well, have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
All right. Thank you. That it?